Everybody, it's Ron at Becoming Enlightened Together. So we have another read. I'm going to go ahead and do the weekly read, and then I'll do another reading, for today. Even though I guess all these readings are basically timeless, so whenever you see it is when you're meant to see it. Okay, and there's going to be something in there for you if you were brought, to this particular channel to watch this. So that doesn't mean everything that I say is going to pertain specifically to you, as these are collective readings, which means the energy as a whole is whatever we're catching or whatever it's being directed to me specifically. My guides are giving it to me. Your guides may be giving it to me, depending. But the energy that I get is for whomever it is that's actually viewing this. But again, use your discernment as to what things are actually resonating with you, what feels right, or what seems to match what your circumstances are, either currently, your past, or presumably based on the things I'm saying. You can easily see that maybe somebody you know or some situation that I'm referring to may indeed be something applicable to you. Okay? There's my disclaimer. I hate it when readers, I hear them say, well, if it resonates, or, just take whatever resonates with you. Well, I mean, if it hasn't happened yet, how is it resonating with you? I mean, but again, sometimes if you're really honing in on your intuition, you'll know well in advance whether, something that I'm referring to or some situation that I brought up may indeed fit your particular circumstance or not. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back a couple of weeks, and then bring us up to speed, because it does seem like we're seeing a progression, and really for some reason focusing on in particular those who may be karmic in our life. And the reason I say that is because 3 weeks ago now, basically the overall energy was that let me see, just to make sure. Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at Manez. Now, Manez was in the upright. That's the overall weekly energy that we got 3 weeks ago, and that's basically the mirror. You are the mirror. It's basically you evaluating, looking inside. Are you projecting who you really are to other people? How do they really see you? Is it an image that you're putting forward, and it's not really your authentic self that you're projecting? In other words, you're wearing a mask. You're still in that particular frame of mind where you're more concerned about what other people think about you, your opinions, your life, than what you yourself think. And that's just not right. That's not authenticity at all. And if you're in that frame of mind, then you are not vibrating at the higher levels of vibration, resonance, or frequency. So with that being said, and I'm not judging whatsoever, we all go through this classroom called life, and some people are a lot further along than other people. Some people are very young souls. Other people have more or less reincarnated here in other worlds many, many times over. And I know that sounds crazy to those that never heard this before, but the more you look into it, the more you evaluate, and the more you compare it to all the other, both, I guess you could say, exoteric, which is your typical household religions, throughout the world, Hinduism, Buddhism. Well, Buddhism really isn't religion per se. It's more of a philosophy, but, or Christianity, Judaism, Islam, any of those types of faiths or whatever. And when I'm talking about, esoteric, or, we could be referring to different realms of Gnosticism, and perhaps other forms of, paganism and so on, including what I'm doing here with the North belief systems. Now, again, I'm an omnist, which means I take the very best from all the religions, all the belief systems, all the faiths, including science, by the way, and my, looking into history and things of that nature, and I take what seems to resonate, seems to me to be, as much as I can possibly do, provably accurate or correct. Now, that doesn't mean it is 100% correct, because I'm still putting the puzzle of life together, trying to discern what indeed is truth for our reality. Now, our reality, I'm talking about the 4 dimensions of, length, width, depth, and, of course, time being the 4th dimension, so to speak, okay? Einstein's theory of relativity, blah, 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 blah. Now, With that being said, that's where it started 3 weeks ago, specifically. And the second week, or 2 weeks ago, it continued on with that. So it's really spirit. Our guides are trying to tell us something for the cross watchers who might be out there watching, or perhaps for the collective out there who have these people right now who are going through their dark night of the soul kind of a thing. They're really going through their karma and everything else to help wake them up. And also, of course, as payment to their past transgressions and everything else. And again, no judgment from me. I had the same thing. I went through the dark night of the soul as everybody out there either has or will at some point. So if you haven't yet, and that just means, you're going to be forced to really go within and reflect. And that is sometimes very, very painful indeed. But when you get to the other side of that tunnel, you see the light indeed. You realize not only was it necessary, but you have grown considerably without even realizing it until you get to the other side. And that's what this journey is all about. And it's filled with surprises and so on, and growth. And keep this in mind also, there is no growth without some discomfort. Whether you're building up your muscles or, you're trying to cram for a test, psychologically, you're putting a lot of effort and, sometimes anxiety and tension and all the kinds of things that can be created when we have something that we have to get through. We know we have to fight our way through to the other side. Okay? All right. Now, I know I'm rambling a little bit, so let me move on. So 2 weeks ago, we had or I should say last week, specifically, we got the rune I saw, which is exactly what we got this week. Only last week, it was in the upright. And I saw in the upright tells us, or tells the karmics who are out there who basically are looking for some kind of guidance or what have you. And I just use the word karmic because you haven't come to the other side of the tunnel yet. You're fighting your way there. I don't mean, again, any disrespect or anything like that. And in fact, I'm championing you right now and encourage you not to give up. Okay? Fight your way, get to the other side. Everybody loves that hero, right? Who just keeps getting up. That's why Rocky made so many freaking sequels. And same thing with his First Blood freaking franchise. Come on, they're hokey movies, all of them, but they're filled with just enough of that psychological, you cheer for the good guy because he just doesn't stay down. He just keeps on going, and that's what you need to be, okay? Literally, it is a fight. It's a battle. It's mostly spiritual and psychological at the same time. That doesn't mean there's no physical, attributes or aspects to it, because trust me, there are times when you're going to be pushed to the absolute limit, physiologically as well as psychologically and spiritually. So, having said all that, so last week, like I said, was I saw in the upright, and that talks about basically, it tells you that the best move to make at this particular juncture in your journey and so on is to do nothing. Don't do anything. Don't make any actual decisions at this point. You are supposed to be in reflection mode, meditation mode, really seeking out and getting clarity with whatever the questions are that you have, to help you on this journey and so on. You're waiting for spirit to give you about your higher, self, things of that nature, whatever you believe. And again, no judgment on my side. So, with that being said, you are supposed to reflect and all of that kind of stuff, not make any moves yet, okay? So that's what they were telling both the collective and the karmics who are out there in the crosswatch scenario. And in this week, what we have overall, again, is I saw, like I said earlier, but this time it's in the reverse. So where last week we were told not to do anything, do not take any action, simply meditate, reflect. Being that it's in the reverse, it's telling us exactly the opposite. It's now time to make a move. Okay? Now, exactly who this is for and exactly what that move is going to differ for each and every one of you out there. All right? So, and I wish I could pinpoint it for you and everything else to give you a little bit more assistance in regards to how best to negotiate this particular change in the environment in terms of what we're more or less being told we should be considering or doing at this point. Now, of course, with free will being available to each and every person out there. You can choose not to do the work. And for some of you out there, I see that as definitely being your response. Other people out there who are teetering on both sides, again, we see that kind of almost bipolar thinking. Whereas 1 minute you're convinced you're going to do it, you're going to fight your way, and then, like the next hour, the next day, whatever the case may be, I see you just ready to go right back out there and do all the same low vibrational, low frequency stuff that you were doing in the first place that kept you basically enchained. Okay? You don't realize it or probably don't see it that way, but that's exactly what it was. Your desires have chained you from being able to increase your vibration, resonance, or frequency and move forward. So karma is inevitable at some point if that's what you've decided to do. And I'm not trying to scaremonger you, or anything like that. I'm just giving you what I know to be actual truths in terms of universal laws. And again, we can prove that through science. We can prove that through comparison of all the world's religions that I'm familiar with anyways. And that includes also paganism, and we're talking about indigenous tribes from every country, whether it's Native American culture here, whether it's Inuits and northern territories, whether it's the Aztecs or Mayans down south, that kind of philosophy and mythology, or you can go all the way to Australia with the Aboriginals. They all have some type of comments along those lines, okay? And even though the stories are different, as I said many times in the past, there are distinct similarities in terms of, what the gist of that particular matter or that parable or story that they're telling us. The overall meaning of that can be found in many, many different faiths. That's all I'm getting at. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Now, with I saw in the reverse, again, it tells us that we are now supposed to be making a move. Okay, but what it also reminds us of is, again, this could be some of the karmics out there who have made the decision not to comply, not to work, to just raise hell and do nothing of any positive outcome whatsoever. Why they decided this, or just for the sake of just being a rebel without a cause, I guess. It's the perfect description in this case. But breach of loyalty and egomania is also the energy of I saw in reverse. Blindness and treachery, deception, illusions, betrayal, guile, stealth, plans, plots, schemes, and maybe even an ambush of some type. So somebody within your energetic, field is still very, very karmic-y, and they may indeed this week be planning and plotting some type of ambush, presumably for the collective. So just don't be paranoid, but just remember, even when things do finally turn for the better for whoever out there is watching this, that doesn't mean there's not going to be any kind of turmoil or problems. Now, you're probably going to have, you know what they say in divination, the higher the levels that you go, the greater the devils that you will experience, in a sense. And that is very, very true. You're always going to have opposition, and think of it like they are obstacles that were planted by spirit to teach you both a lesson. Now, oftentimes, those in the karmic energy, it's going to take them a great deal more time to figure that out. So when their plans, plots, and schemes fail, that's when they will start the process, if they are of a mind to actually go through that dark night of the soul when the karma hits. If not, well, then, like I said, they will be humbled one way or the other. And for some of them, we already know, we've been hearing it for months and months now. Some of them are not going to make it. Some of them physically are going to expire. And again, I don't get any comfort or joy out of that, but it is what it is. And, their guides, our guides, Spirit, the universe, the Most High, their higher self, has been trying to no avail to get them to wake up. And we have seen enough energy over the last several months to see that for what it is. Alright, so that is the overall energy going into this week, and it has been progressing over the last 3 weeks. I don't know what else to say except it's been very, very concise all of this time. And I don't mean that because I'm reading it. I mean, that's literally the energy that we're getting here. It's really telling the story of the progression of both those who are trying and those who have decided not to try. And every once in a while, it lets us know how we're doing in terms of the collective. But for the last 3 weeks, it's been really dialing in once again on the karmics. So, what is the overall energy for today? Well, the energy for today, which is actually Monday, is that of Tiwas, and this is the tires rune. Oops, and this one is also in reverse. So where Tiwas is often what it means in the upright is basically doing the right thing, even if it hurts. So it's about integrity, and it's about using your mostly it's about integrity. I'll just use that one word out there. So it's basically doing the right thing when nobody's watching whatsoever, when you're getting no kudos for it and everything else. And sometimes you're saying something or doing something that you know the repercussions are not going to be favorable to you in some regard, but you know it is absolutely in the moral sense or some other sense perhaps, and there's more than just morality involved in this decision-making process. But whatever the case may be, you're going to do it because it's the right thing. And I always try to walk in those shoes. And sometimes, we fail. We all do. We all make mistakes. But that is basically the energy that we're looking at as far as tire is concerned. But that's in the upright. What it means in the reverse is exactly the opposite. Okay? Somebody is not doing the right thing. And they're still trying to keep secrets. So that's what this is talking about. Now, what it also means in terms of the energy in the reverse, it talks about a blocked journey. So somebody is made their decision, and I guess the horns and the trumpets have been blown, and for them specifically, they have made their own decision, and now they can expect to get their recompense for their decision making or lack thereof. So beyond a blocked journey, we have a sense of listlessness. They're going to start losing their faculties little by little. They're going to start losing their mind, their health, their friends, their resources, everything. And it's a horrible place to be. I don't know what to say about that, but it's just to teach you basically your lessons, and if you refuse to learn them, you're going to have to repeat them in a future existence, and it's going to be harder then. It's going to be harder every time that you do what you're doing. You have to learn the lesson at some point. So whatever that lesson is, whatever karmic debt your ancestry may have basically brought forward, for some of us, especially in the collective, that's exactly what we are here to do, to break the chains of an ancestral bondage, so to speak. They call them curses. Oftentimes you hear that talked about in many cases on, tarot channels and some of the other places that they do these kinds of things. But that's really the gist of it. And, you do that, and basically you bring your karma down to zero, and you basically start everything from scratch. And again, you can verify those things numerologically as well as astrologically, and I have done that several times, and I'm becoming more and more familiar with both of those aspects. All right, so upon all the other things as far as listlessness, blocked journey, we also have the blocked energy and creative flow, mental paralysis, over-analysis, a sense of injustice, especially if you've got this victim mentality where everything is everybody's fault and I take no responsibility for my own actions, and so on and so forth. So imbalances of many types are also covered here. Possibly war, conflict, and you don't have to get your camis on and go overseas to be at war. You can be at war mentally, physically, or spiritually with another person, group, or whatever the case may be. So problems communicating is also an energy. Possible separation. So somebody may be going through a separation at this time. Somebody is experiencing a dwindling passion and also dwindling resources. And again, I feel for you. Like I said, I've been there and I know what that's like. I know how hard it is to get to the other side. And especially if you're still low vibrational and everything else, it's going to be much more difficult for you. Okay? So I would really, try to get you to reevaluate your decisions in regards to that. Alright, so that's T-Was in the reverse. So far, not a very positive message for this week, but again, these are just the overall energies for each day throughout the week. For Tuesday's energy, what I have is Wunyo. Now, this is much better. This is the wishing rune, okay? And Wunyo in the upright is very, very positive. It talks about joy and harmony. It talks about kinship, shared successes. Talks about blessings and affection, desire, pleasure, ecstasy, prosperity, glory, spiritual rewards, but with the possibility of going overboard. I'm not exactly sure how to rephrase that. That's the way it's written into a couple of the books that I've read on this. Spiritual rewards with the potential of going overboard. You may actually, maybe it's an ego thing, where you start to feel that, yeah, God's got me, so I get away with anything, I can do anything. Remember now, just because we have raised our vibration, we've gone through the dark night of the soul probably several times to get to where we are, there's always more tests. And sometimes they're very, very subtle, especially when you get a little bit higher and everything else. You don't even recognize the test is occurring until it's over with. So just, see it that way, and it's a little less harsh. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be harsh. But it'll be far easier to deal with when you see it as a necessary lesson just to get to the other side. Now, sometimes it's hard to find the lesson in something, and we ask those deep questions when it doesn't make sense. But if you're on this journey, the spiritual journey, then you have to learn how to trust your spirit, your spiritual team, your ancestors, your higher self, the universe, whoever and whatever it is that you call upon or you deal with in regards to your spiritual journey, spiritual walk. Okay. Wunyo also talks about recognizing your own self-worth, and it's absolutely essential that we learn that. And now I know if you've been cut down since you were just a child and everything else, and everything that you heard out of your own parents' lips were, in some way derogatory, whatever the case may be, or you had a couple of failed relationships, or, maybe a boss at a job, I don't know. It can be different for everybody out there. Maybe it's all the above and more. Then it's going to weigh upon your psyche, upon your emotional, viewpoint of yourself. And it's imperative that we learn to love ourselves so that we can learn how to love another properly. So you have to learn to love yourself. Now that doesn't mean in a friggin' conceited way or anything like that. It's just good to pour into yourself, to be more alive, more lively, more energized, more capable. So that once your cup is filled, you can go ahead and pour into other people's cups who need some extra help. Okay? So it's important to love yourself. Now, Wednesday, or Wednesday's energy, is that of Rado. Now, Rado in the upright is the blessed journey, okay? So that's basically what we're talking about. And it's journeying not just in physical terms, but also within our soul. Journeying, in a sense of astral traveling, shamanic visions, whatever the case may be. It's another form of traveling, so to speak. So anything regarding moving forward in a positive manner, that is Rado, okay? So it also talks about things that are specific in a tangible fashion to moving forward. In other words, a carriage, a cart, a wagon, a car, a vehicle of some kind, including the parts of that, a wheel, a steering wheel, whatever. So it deals with that as well. But it also talks about, things such as relocations, maybe even a vacation, okay? Evolution even. You're evolving, in terms of your spiritual journey is a form of travel or movement, positive movement, okay? So it talks about a change of setting in some way, wanted. It talks about seeing a larger perspective, seeing the right move to make and deciding upon it. And also it talks about basically the rhythms of life, cycles of life. There's cycles with everything, as I often say whenever this room comes up, and a couple others, like year. It talks about seasons. We have typically 4 seasons. Some places you only have 2. In some places it seems like you only have 1 with the occasional bit of sun that comes out, depending how far north or south you are. But and it's just the opposite around the equator, where although it does in the higher elevation snow, even on the equator in some cases, for the most part, you don't see a whole lot in regards to snow. You might see a lot of rain, depending, because that's usually where all the jungles and things like that are too, the equatorial line. But anyways, moving on. That was Wednesday's energy, Rado. Now, when we're looking at Thursday's energy, we have another god. This is the god Freyr. Now, Freyr is the twin brother of the goddess Freya, one of the most esteemed goddesses in Norse pantheon. Okay. Now, Freyr is, the energy for this in the upright talks about fertility, potential. It talks about your stored energy, perhaps some form of heroism, freedom, conclusions of something, a cycle concluding, for example, or even a relationship of some kind. It's typically in a positive sense, though. It talks about consequences. It talks about male fertility, growth, virtue, strength. Talks about family, love, common sense, human warmth, either home, a stage or a time of rest. It talks about relief. It talks about a time of no anxiety. And also that all loose ends are being tied off. And finally, it's time to listen to your intuition. Okay? So again, this is one of those days where we're talking both to the collective as well as the karmics out there. This is good advice for both. Now, in terms of Friday's energy, we have the rune Yera. Now, Yera in this case is in the reverse. Now, Yera in the reverse talks about how the fruition or the completion of something you've been working towards, you can't rush it. You have to let it happen in its own time, okay? So it also talks about sometimes reversals and setbacks of some kind, major changes. It talks about perhaps going in a repetitive fashion in circles or whatever, doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome for some of you. Bad timing, conflict, and poverty. Again, this is all the things we've been talking about for well, quite a while now in regards to the karmics in particular. But you don't have to be karmic to go through some of these lessons, okay? Um, there's different things that we can learn in these situations. And when it comes to material pursuits, if you are one that is revolving your entire existence around all the toys that you can gather before you die, the one with the most toys in the end wins kind of bullshit. And that's what it is. Materialism, like everything else in our life, has to be balanced. If that's all you're thinking and that's your total pursuit of life, then it's going to be a very empty one. You're never going to be satisfied, ever. And there's going to be a lot of lessons you're going to end up having to go through as a result of that decision. So hopefully, most of you anyways, have gotten past that. Alright, so bad timing, conflict, and poverty. That's Friday's energy. Now Saturday, we end off with a powerful rune, and it's that of Algus. Now Algus is basically the rune of protection and defense. Okay? So that's what it's talking about. Warding your space. Warding or defending a person, place, or thing. A desire, or a need to defend, others, so on and so forth. It also talks about divine connections, our connection with spirit. It talks about friendship. It talks about, a person's soul, optimism, aspirations. Basically, again, I already said protection and defense. Let's see. Talks about even warding off of evil. In fact, again, you used to see Winston Churchill, back in the 30s and 40s. He'd always flash the peace sign, and it started, something of a revolution, although most people don't know what it meant or where it came from. But, he was an initiated druid as well as a high-level Freemason, so he knew about the esoteric aspects of many of these things. And being a druid, like I said, he's probably very familiar with runes, okay? Or at least with the pagan belief systems. So that's where that comes from. It basically gets its symbolism from the elk and the horns, which are used for protection and defense of itself. Okay, like your fingers or whatever, fanning out or whatever, like the antlers of a deer. So it talks about basically sheltering oneself and a need to shelter others. I think I've already said that. It talks about awakening one's intuition and basically having to hold on to your success, whether earned or whether it was won. So somebody may be fighting for their job right now. Maybe somebody was wrongfully terminated or something of that nature. This is telling you to defend yourself, okay? Again, the overall energy for the week is to take action. Now, what action you're talking about depends on who it is that is receiving this message. It'll be different for every one of us out there, okay? So that's basically it as far as the weekly read. I'll go ahead and pack this up, post it, and I'll go ahead and do a reading for today specifically. Okay? So in the meantime, God bless, take care, stay victorious out there, and perhaps we'll all meet someday in the highlight. Later.